Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to our educational platform, Learn Arabic Today. And today, inshallah, we'll be looking at more about questions. I remember, or as-su'al, the lesson is entitled as-su'al, but in English it says more about questions. So it's not just how to create questions. I think because we did previously talk about how to create interrogative sentences using interrogative question words. Today we will look at something more specific, and here's the question that we will try to answer today, which is how do direct and indirect questions in English and Arabic compare? How do direct and indirect questions in English and Arabic compare? So what are the direct questions? In English, they are of course, the questions that begin with a question word, and we put a question mark at the end. This is how we punctuate a question sentence. But the indirect question is a question that is implied. For example, without using a question word, and it's not exactly stated like a question. The structure is a little bit different from the direct question to the indirect question. There is a difference in structure or word or order. For example, you say, for example, I do not know how do I memorize the names of the students, the new students? How do I memorize? So this is a direct question. But if you say, I don't know how to memorize the new names of the students, you notice that it's a statement, but the way I say it, the intonation of my voice indicate that I'm asking for help and that I want somebody to explain to me how to memorize the names of new students as a new teacher, for example. So I don't know how to. And if you noticed, I used an infinitive form of the verb. For example, I don't know how to do something. Okay. So there is more than one way for creating an indirect question in English, whereas in Arabic, they tell you it's rather, there is basically no difference, like in structure or in word order. So let's take a closer look at this. So direct question, for example, how can I memorize all the names? Okay. And in Arabic, it is translated into كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء. So here, what did I use? I used a question word. Because it's a direct question, I have to use a question word in order to make a question. And there is a question mark at the end of the question, right? So كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء? How do I memorize, or how can I memorize all the names? In English, you notice there is how can I. So the verb comes, like the supportive verb comes first, and then you have the subject comes after it, because this is how we organize. This is how the words are organized in a question. So supportive verb comes first, and then comes the subject. Now, let's take a look at the indirect question, which does not use a question word in either in Arabic or in English. So in English, you would say, I do not know how to memorize all the names. So this is one way of putting it, using the infinitive form, to, and the present tense, simple tense verb form. So I do not know how to memorize all the names. So this is one way of saying it. Another way is in order to create an indirect question, is to say, I do not know how I can memorize all the names. I do not know how I can. If you notice here, compare this statement here, or this question, this indirect question, to the direct question structure here. What did you notice here? So can came first, the modifying verb came first, or the supportive, I forgot what we called it, the auxiliary verb. So can came first and then the subject, whereas in the indirect question, you had I can. The subject came first and then the verb. Okay, so I do not know how I can memorize all the names. Okay, so the auxiliary verb came after I instead of here I came after can. So there is a difference in structure, but let's compare the Arabic then, the Arabic form. Now for the direct question we said كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء. The indirect question in Arabic would be لا أعرف. So we added just something that says I do not know how. I do not know. I do not know. لا أعرف. And then you notice that the rest of the statement is exactly the same, is a copy paste from this one. كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء. So كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء is repeated again. So كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء in the direct question is used again as it is in the indirect question structure. So كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء. And you have to put a period because this is an indirect question. You're pleading with somebody to help you understand how you can memorize all the names. So you either say لا أعرف, I do not know how. It depends on the sentence you want to create. Let's say you want to say I do not remember how I can memorize. You can say لا أتذكر. It depends. But this is like how, remember we said how you can negate a present tense verb. لا أعرف, لا أتذكر, you add لا to the present tense verb, the conjugated present tense verb. So لا أعرف أو لا أتذكر أو لا تتذكر, she does not remember. هي لا تعرف, she does not know, etc. But then if you notice the remaining part of the question, the indirect question, it's almost copy paste from the direct question sentence structure. So كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء is repeated again here. لا أعرف كيف أحفظ كل الأسماء. So we do not change the word order such as what we did here in English. Like how can I instead of how I can versus how I can in the indirect question. Okay. So far so good. Okay, in Arabic, the structure and word order stay the same in both the direct and indirect questions formatting, which is what we have just talked about. Okay, now let's take an example. Direct question, أين تسكن مها? So remember that we can always use different question words to create different types of questions. So the first one was how, كيف. Now we're using أين. أين تسكن مها? Where does Maha live? That's a direct question. If I want to ask somebody the same question but indirectly, I would say, I don't remember where Maha lives. So help me out with that part, right? So لا أتذكر, I do not remember, but still I keep أين تسكن مها. أين تسكن مها stays here, أين تسكن مها. Okay, now in Arabic, the intonation and context often convey the sense of English modals could, would, and should. So remember, we use these modal verbs, which are like the supportive verbs, the auxiliary verbs, to help with making a question. How do we create this in Arabic? We do not have something that corresponds to them except your intonation, the way you say the sentence in Arabic, and the fact that it is mentioned in a certain context helps the listener understand that it is an indirect question. It implies the use of could, would, and should. So لا أتذكر أين تسكن مها. Basically, the person will understand. I do not remember how I might or how I can find out where Maha lives. I do not remember where Maha lives. Okay, or I do not remember how I could know where Maha lives, or something like that. So I'm trying to use could or would or something like that in an English question that corresponds to لا أتذكر أين تسكن معها. Okay, in Arabic, we said the intonation can decide or can help the listener understand that the implied or convey the sense of the English modals could, would, and should in English. Now, let's have more examples here. أمثلة. رقم واحد, number one, كيف أكتب اسمه? How do I write his name? This is a direct question. How do I know that? Because you are using a question word and there's a question mark at the end of the sentence. So كيف أكتب اسمه? How do I write his name? This is direct. Now I want to change it into an indirect sentence, an indirect question. I say لا أعرف, I do not know, but I copy paste the question sentence as is. So لا أعرف كيف أكتب اسمه. Except the intonation is different here. كيف أكتب اسمه? Here لا أعرف كيف أكتب اسمه. لا أعرف كيف أكتب اسمه. So it kind of the tone of my voice goes down here because the emphasis is on I do not know. Okay, أنا لا أعرف. Okay, another one, example number 2, مثال رقم 2. أين يسكن صديقنا? Where does our friend live? مباشر, direct question. Now, I want a question that is indirect. لا أتذكر, I don't remember. Here, I don't know. I said, here, لا أعرف, I don't know. لا أتذكر, I don't remember where our friend lives. So where did this come from? لا أتذكر, you have to make it up because you're trying to use words to compensate for the question word. So you're taking out, you do not want to ask use the question word directly to ask a question. You want to precede it with some words that say that you're kind of confused, you're unsure, you need help. About what? About أين يسكن صديقنا. So أين يسكن صديقنا here is not a question itself. It is part of the statement, an affirmative statement that you're using here. But it looks the same as interrogative statement. And that's what we've been trying to prove, that when you ask a direct question and change it then into an indirect question, the structure of the sentence stays the same. Even though here it is indicated that this is a question, أين يسكن صديقنا? Here, and the intonation is kind of different here. أين يسكن صديقنا? So the emphasis is on أين. But here the emphasis is on I do not remember, because you are indirectly asking for help. You don't want to say, where does our friend live? You don't want to shock them with that question. You just want to be milder or gentler or whatever. So you say, oh, I don't remember. لا أتذكر أين يسكن صديقنا. Okay? But the sentence structure did not change in Arabic from direct to indirect questions. All right. Then we have one more example. من يدرس التاريخ الإسلامي? Who's teaching the Islamic history? This is direct question. Who? You're using who here. من يدرس التاريخ الإسلامي? You're being direct. You want to be indirect to say, I don't know who. I don't really know who's teaching Islamic history. لا أعرف من يدرس التاريخ الإسلامي. لا أعرف من يدرس التاريخ الإسلامي. So man here becomes like a relative pronoun instead of a question word. That's what makes it really different, even though it's a copy paste from من يدرس التاريخ الإسلامي. Here من يدرس التاريخ, but man here in the Arabic grammar, this is considered a question word. Here it is considered like a relative pronoun, like who, for example. Okay. I mean, it's a relative pronoun in Arabic. It's like الذي or something like that. but it's not like a question word. Okay. Next, تمرين. So we're going to take a look at exercise number 12, page 62. They're saying here, the question head says, what do these people know or not know? So there are, they included something, everything that's in green, this is what was in the question, and the rest, the blue, is what I had answered, is what I had added. So some of them says, I don't know, or they don't know, or in some of the questions, some of the items say, I know, or we know. So that's why they're saying, what do these people know or not know? Imitate the pattern you heard Maha, the pattern you heard Maha use. Imitate the pattern that you heard Maha use. So what is the pattern that Maha used? لا أعرف كيف أحفظ الكلمات. I don't know how to memorize the words. Okay? Use the interrogative particles, so they're asking you to use them, that you know. What are these? من, ماذا, من which means who, ماذا what, أين where, من أين from where, من أين from where, كيف how, أي which, هل, it's the equivalent of is in the question, like هل أنت مريض, are you sick? It's the equivalent of the verb to be is or be or are or something in a question. Okay, لا أعرف, and then you have to finish that sentence. So I would choose one of these question words. I chose من. لا أعرف من يدرس التاريخ. لا أعرف من, I don't know who's teaching history. Okay, so I'm trying to create an indirect question. Another sentence here, like number 2, it says نعرف. They're not asking you to create a question. They just wanted to finish the sentence. It's an affirmative sentence. We know. What do you know? So نعرف. I also used من. We know who. نعرف من يدرس التاريخ. We know who teaches history. I can say نعرف ماذا مثلا ماذا يعمل أبوك. I know what your father does for a job, for example. So it can be anything, like you can put anything. So I just use this one. الأستاذ يعرف من أين نشتري الكتب. الأستاذ يعرف, and they wanted me to fill out the rest. So I said, okay, الأستاذ يعرف. What does the teacher know? I said, let's use من أين, where from, or from where. الأستاذ يعرف من أين نشتري الكتب. So the teacher knows where we can buy these books from. من أين نشتري الكتب. I made that up. Okay, you can put a different sentence on your own. لا يعرفون, what do they not know? لا يعرفون, I wanted to use now ماذا. So I said, I want to use ماذا. So I said, لا يعرفون ماذا أحضر لهم صديقنا. They don't know what our friend brought them. I just made it up. Okay? I'm trying to diversify the use of the question words in those sentences, whether they are in the affirmative or they are indirect questions. Okay, والدتي لا تعرف. My mother does not know. So this is an indirect question, right? So my mother does not know how to make basbousa. It's some kind of dessert. Okay, so والدتي does not know, and I wanted to choose كيف. I wanted to use كيف. How? والدتي لا تعرف. She does not know كيف تعمل البسبوسة. She does not know how to make basbousa. My friend صديقي يعرف what? I don't know. صديقي يعرف, he knows what. صديقي يعرف, I wanted to use أي كتب نحتاج للمذاكرة. My friend, he knows which books we need to study from. Okay, so which books we need to study. So this is not a question, or this is not a direct or indirect question. It's just a statement. Okay, ألا تعرفين? Oh, don't you know what? This is a question, okay, which could be replaced by هل تعرفين أين يسكن أستاذنا? Do you know where our teacher lives? And remember when we studied about how to make an interrogative question, we said we can use it in the negative. We can say, don't you know how? Or don't you know blah? Instead of do you know something, we can say don't you know. So ألا تعرفين أين يسكن أستاذنا? And so I used أين يسكن أستاذنا. ألا تعرفين أين يسكن أستاذنا? And this is a direct question, but it's in the negative form. Okay, because it's using a question word. ألا. Okay. Okay. ألا تتذكرون كيف نطهو الخضار? Don't you remember? And then you have to finish it up. ألا تتذكرون. So let's finish off the sentence. ألا تتذكرون what? كيف نطهو الخضار? Don't you remember how we cook the vegetables? Don't you remember? So this is a direct or indirect question. It's a direct question. Why? Because I'm using a question verb. A question word. A negative question word. ألا. Don't you remember? Which we said that it could be the equivalent of ألا could mean هل. It could mean يعني basically I can say أتتذكرون كيف نطهو الخضار؟ أتعرفين أين يسكن أستاذنا؟ I can say هل تعرفين أين يسكن أستاذنا؟ هل تتذكرون كيف نطهو الخضار؟ And for 9 they have هل تذكرون. Do you remember? And then the remaining part we have to fix it. We have to create it. So هل تذكرون? Do you remember? I use كيف نطهو الخضار. Do you remember how we could cook the how we can cook the vegetables? And again, this is a direct question. But if you notice كيف نطهو, كيف نعمل, أين يسكن, etc. It's similar. We do not change the sentence structure beginning from the question word on to create, like when we create whether we're creating a direct question or indirect question, the structure does not change, or the word order. It's almost copy paste, besides the first part that you have to add, whether to make it indirect by saying, oh, my mother doesn't know something, or if you're just asking a direct question by saying, oh, don't you know, blah. You notice that this is a direct question, and this one is an indirect question, but at the same time the question word is here, and then we have a verb, present tense verb, the question word كيف, أين, then تعملوا, then يسكنوا. They correspond to each other, and here is an object basically, تعملوا, يسكنوا, verb. Now the subject is implied, okay, and then the object is البسبوسة, and here it's أستاذنا. So the sentence structure did not change. It's almost the same, except for we have to change the way how we, if it's like a negative question, we have to say ألا تعرفين, don't you know something, etc. And if it's a negative question, it's an indirect question, you just have to create an introduction to your question. Instead of asking it directly, كيف تعمل البسبوسة? How do you make basbousa? You don't want to say كيف تعمل البسبوسة. You want to say, oh, my mom does not know how to make basbousa. So can you please help us? Can you please help her by showing her how to do it? Okay. Instead of saying والدتي تسأل كيف نعمل البسبوسة. Like, no, she's not asking directly كيف نعمل البسبوسة. You're reporting that your mom is asking, and she needs help for how to make a basbousa. She needs help with the recipe. Okay, and so this brings us to the end of our lesson. It's a short lesson, but basically we learned today the difference between the sentence structure um, and word order between the direct questions and indirect questions from Arabic, from English to Arabic. Like, what are the differences between the Arabic direct and indirect question structure and the English direct and indirect question structure? Okay, if you have any question, please write it down in the comments. I will make a copy of my explanation templates, and I'll put them in the description box. I do welcome all of your comments and your questions. Please press the like button, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to my channel. And Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for tuning in, and take care, inshallah. Until next time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.